Welcome to a brand new episode of the UFO Show. In this installment, we learn the UAP Task Force has gotten an upgrade, we get a little closer to inhabitable planets beyond our own, and we meet a preacher who almost had sex with an alien. For reals. Let's get to it. We hope you enjoyed the UAP Task Force while it lasted, because that establishment, created to monitor and collect intel on all unidentifiable flying objects, is now in the history books. But don't fret, the task force has been replaced by a new collective called the Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group, or AOMSG for short. They're going to have to work on a catchier name soon. According to the press release from the Department of Defense, the AOI-MSG will synchronize efforts across the department and the broader U.S. government to detect, identify, and attribute objects of interest in special use airspace, and to assess and mitigate any associated threats to safety or flight and national security. The Office of the Undersecretary of Defense, or USDI, will provide oversight of the newly formed group, as well as form an executive council comprised of Department of Defense and intelligence community members. So what has changed since the brief days of the much cooler-sounding UAP Task Force, which was announced by the Pentagon back in August of 2020? On the face of it, not all that much. Both organizations look to take seriously the incursion of any airborne object, identified or not, into U.S. airspace very seriously, especially the airspace above a military installation. The big difference is that the UAP Task Force was overseen by the U.S. Navy, while the newly formed coalition will be, as mentioned, overseen by the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense, USDI. Thank you for watching the UFO Show, and I ask that if you enjoy our shows, subscribe to our channel right now, like this video, and click on the bell so you can be notified each time a new video goes up. Now back to the show. Now, to most average Earthlings like myself, the response might be, okay, so what's the big deal? Well, according to Luis Elizondo, the deal is pretty big. You should remember Mr. Elizondo's name, as it's been mentioned on our show a handful of times. He's one of the most outspoken whistleblowers in the UFO world, having once been employed by the government as the leader of the ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Man, they gotta come up with some catchier names than these. Elizondo has been calling the government out for the past few years on the subject of UFOs and has been pleading for more transparency on the matter. When it comes to newly formed AOI-MSG, Elizondo warns us not to get too excited. Via his Twitter page, Elizondo claims that the USDI is, quote, the same organization that has underplayed and tried to kill the UAP effort for years. He says it's an oversight organization and not required to provide unclassified findings to Congress or work with our international partners, that it has continuously lied about the topic for years, and that it has even persecuted whistleblowers. Finally, Elizondo urged his followers to contact the representatives and let them know this is not in the best interest of the American people. Wow, make of that what you will. Obviously, this is just one man calling out the powers that be. But as he appears to be an authority on the subject, and knows full well how close the government likes to keep its secrets, maybe we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. We will be keeping a close eye on this as it develops, but for now, let us know what you think. Are you excited about the organization that will, allegedly, investigate UFOs? Or are you meeting the news with a healthy degree of skepticism? Onto something with a little less cynicism. Every 10 years or so, a large team of astronomers, astrophysicists, scientists, and other very intelligent people come together to decide what scientific priorities exist for the next decade. What should we be focused on in the worlds of science and space? That sort of thing. Well, in early November of 2021, the National Academies released their first report since 2010, a 614-page document entitled Pathways to Discovery in Astronomy and Astrophysics for the 2020s. Within this document are three major topics that the group think the scientific communities need to look into more than any others. The first, and most intriguing, is called Pathways to Habitable Worlds, a program designed to help find Earth-like exoplanets with the goal of eventually capturing photos of them and determining if they will indeed be inhabitable. The second is called New Windows on the Dynamic Universe, and it's an effort to study the mystery of black holes, which we still know relatively little about. Gaining a better understanding of this phenomena might shed light on the very early universe, according to the report. That could very well blow a handful of minds, wouldn't you agree? The third area of focus is called Unveiling the Drivers of Galaxy Growth, which isn't the most exciting name, but it's a fascinating topic, centering on scientists' understanding of galaxy formation and evolution, from the nature of the tenuous cosmic webs of gas that feed them, to the nature of how this gas condenses and drives the formation of stars, the survey reads. All that to say, let's get a better understanding of the carrying and feeding of an entire galaxy. Pretty cool stuff. The first plan of action to help gain knowledge in all three areas is a large space telescope, which would help us to know more about those large exoplanets out there in the universe, and to see if they could indeed be inhabitable. Now, don't start packing just yet. The plan is to get this $11 billion device into outer space sometime in the 2040s. So we've obviously got some waiting to do, and it's fairly likely we won't be settling down on another planet in most of our lifetimes. Still, it's an exciting proposition to consider. The further out into space we travel, the more telescopes we can build, the closer we get to contact with our distant neighbors, the closer we get to understanding the universe, and so on. As Space.com notes, these surveys are very influential, as government agencies such as NASA and the National Science Foundation use them as stepping stones to decide where to prioritize their funding. If these scientists think building a giant space telescope to search for inhabitable planets is a good idea, well, then the government just might make it so. So let's hope these efforts get the funding they deserve so we can start understanding galaxies and black holes and inhabitable planets that much more. But now for something completely different. Don't you hate it when this happens? You're settling into bed with your loved one for some relaxing alone time, when you're interrupted by a double of your spouse, who actually turns out to be a human skin-wearing reptilian from another world.
I know, right?
Yeah, me too. That's apparently what happened to Sharon Gilbert, preacher, author, quote-unquote science reporter, and almost sex haver with an extraterrestrial. Mrs. Gilbert went on a religious infomercial in November to discuss, well, a near-close encounter of a most intimate kind with an alien who looked exactly like her husband, Derek, also an author and preacher. Quote, after Derek and I got married, this other Derek appears in our bed.
The real Derek is lying down next to me. Other Derek sits right up out of him. It startled me. I knew that was not Derek, and so I asked this critter, "Who are you?" Because he clearly wanted to have
sexual relations.
Sexual relations.
So far, so good, right? We're all following along? Nothing too unusual going on? Well, it's about to get a little weirder, because apparently other Derek visited her more than once. The poor guy was getting desperate. At his lowest point, other Derek even brought some backup creatures to help him out. Quote, finally I said,
I've had enough. In my mind, I reached up. I grabbed his face. And I said, "You are a liar, and Jesus is real." And I pulled that face off, and beneath it was a reptile. And he had little creatures with him this time. He brought these little halfling creatures, and they looked like, I don't know, gargoyles. They were very reptilian as well. So beneath that face of Derek was a reptilian
serpentine creature. Scary stuff. And you've got to feel some sympathy for the real Derek. I mean, imagine if his wife hadn't been so observant, immediately sussing out that other Derek was an intergalactic sex offender. Derek might have gotten cucked by his own reptilian doppelganger. And no preacher wants to walk into church with that weighing on his soul. And lest you doubt Sharon's expertise on the subject, she credits herself as being a science advisor and reporter, which should be good enough for all of us. So tonight, when you cozy up to your partner in bed, might want to pull on their face just a little. The government is spending billions of dollars searching for extraterrestrials in outer space, and you might just have one slumbering next to you. That's it for now, folks. The truth is out there, somewhere, and we're going to be keeping an eye on things for all you true believers. And if you have anything to share with us, don't hesitate to send us an email at ufoshow@joeblow.com. We're eager to hear from all our fellow UFO and outer space enthusiasts. Also, please share your thoughts and any cool extraterrestrial news you might have in the comments section. We're going to be your one-stop shop for all things alien going forward. So until next month, keep watching the skies.